The accused Idaho quadruple murderer walked into a courthouse in Pennsylvania with a stone-cold face. Now at 4, how many search warrants were granted to police, what they obtained, and when Bryan Kohberger could be back in Idaho. Plus,
she indicated that she knew who the suspect was because the suspect had been trying to contact them at their apartment just prior to the shooting.
The murder in Marysville led to a SWAT situation in Granite Falls. Police were able to make a quick arrest in what all we know about the suspect.
And 2 men are behind bars accused of vandalizing substations in Pierce County. Why police believe they wanted to cut power to people in the community? Fox 13 News at 4 starts right now.
This is Fox 13 News at 4.
I did not imagine the investigation would lead to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Extradition papers are signed, and we're learning new details about the arrest of Bryan Kohberger. The next step in the case is getting the man accused of the brutal quadruple murders back to Idaho. Thanks for joining us for the News at 4. I'm Brian Jackson.
And I'm Hannah Kim. We have team coverage tonight. Philadelphia Fox reporter Chris O'Connell was in the courtroom with Kohberger as he made his first court appearance.
But first, we're going to head to Fox 13's David Rose, who is tracking new details from Pennsylvania State Police about exactly how he was arrested, David.
Yeah, we do have some new information today. We know that an FBI surveillance team spent 4 days tracking Kohberger while police worked with prosecutors to get the warrant to arrest him. Today, the 28-year-old, wearing that red jail-issued jumpsuit, had his hands shackled in front of him as he appeared for a hearing at the Monroe County Courthouse. The question now, though, is when he'll be brought back to Idaho to face 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary.
And it has entered a new phase with the waiver for extradition. And the continuing primary goal is the seeking of justice through successful prosecution and conviction, bearing the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
This is the scribbled signature of the man who allegedly stabbed 4 Idaho students to death. The paperwork waiving his right to extradition. Bryan Kohberger made his first and only court appearance in Pennsylvania. The Monroe County District Attorney saying today he believes Kohberger wants to get to Idaho as soon as possible.
But having read those documents and the sealed affidavits of probable cause, I definitely believe that one of the main reasons the defendant chose to waive extradition and hurry his return back to Idaho was the need to know what was in those documents.
Information about why he was arrested remains sparse. Idaho law prevents the release of the affidavit until he returns to the gem state.
Arrangements currently are being made to deliver Kohberger back to Idaho,
which they have 10 days to do so. As authorities prepared for the arrest, Pennsylvania State Police say for a period of time, authorities were closely monitoring Kohberger and his family to determine the best time to issue the warrants. Police issued 3 warrants, 1 for Kohberger's DNA, 1 for the white Elantra, and 1 to search the family home.
It's a full-time tactical team maintained by PSP to deal with high-risk warrant situations. When you talk about the service of a high-risk warrant for someone who's committed or alleged to have committed 4 homicides, there's nothing routine about that.
Police in Monroe County say they're also going to be investigating what Kohberger was up to in the time period between his return from Idaho and the arrest. And we're also getting new video of Kohberger as he was driving home for winter break from Washington State University. This video obtained by TMZ. The suspect was stopped by Indiana State Police on December 15th for following too closely to the vehicle in front of him. Kohberger was driving. The passenger, presumably his father, was with him. Indiana police say at the time of the stop, they did not know that he could possibly be related to the 4 homicides. That long cross-country drive now being reversed. Once the suspect is back in Loudoun County Jail, he'll be appointed a public defender. And he was identified, according to sources Fox News has within the police department, from genetic genealogy on work done on DNA found at the crime scene in Moscow. But still, a lot not known, and we won't know exactly when he comes back because police say today that they will not release that information for security reasons. So he'll be back at some time in the next 10 days.
Yeah, David, thank you. So many people paying attention to this story. And reporter Chris O'Connell was in the courtroom as a judge read Kohberger his charges in front of some of his family.
And Chris has more for us tonight from Pennsylvania.
consequences are evident.
We are socked in here this morning. I went out this morning around 3:30 to just check the road conditions when I got up, and immediately there was a sheet of ice.
People can't help but slide on an icy reality. Changing Christmas plans for thousands.
So I have been here since 9 p.m. yesterday, and I was hoping to beat the snow and the traffic and all the crowds, and I got here, my flight was canceled.
Will people be able to make it to their destinations?
But it's going to continue to be limited operations at this point.
The storm even taking aim at people responsible for helping those in trouble.
So our response times are going to be slower only because of the fact that the road conditions call for that.
With warming temperatures, the ice is thawing, bringing new concerns about flooding.
This is Fox 13 News at 4.
Thanks for joining us at 4. I'm Nia Wong.
And I'm Matthew Smith. Now, Western Washington has not seen an ice event like this one in more than a decade. The ice making the roads a virtual skating rink. It also brought down power lines. More than 13,000 people are in the dark right now. And of course, they're also in the cold. Now, Puget Sound Energy makes up 9,000 of our current outages that we're tracking. Another 3,000 are from Snohomish PUD up to our north.
And thankfully, power is back in the San Juans after nearly everyone there went without light or heat last night. We have team coverage tonight from 4 counties that are digging out of the ice. Lisa Villegas tracking the forecast and warm up.
Brisa Mendez is talking with folks trying to thaw out in Snohomish County. Jennifer Dowling, she's up near Gold Bar as US 2 has been shut down, leaving people in the cold and the dark. Yes, many without power there.
And we have Alejandro Guzman at one of the most hectic impacted places today, SeaTac. But first, we head to Frankie Thompson, where a car has flipped over. Frankie?
Yeah, and really, that could have happened to anyone. Edmonds is full of steep hills. That's why the city closed off this street to downtown to prevent drivers from sliding or crashing into something, because that's exactly what happened to one driver just a few blocks away from here.
This is Fox 13 News at 5.
Tonight on Fox 13 News, flames burst out on the freeway and the afternoon commute comes screeching to a halt after a truck catches fire. How long will this affect traffic, and how did this fire start in the first place? We'll break it all down for you next.
Plus, the morning commute also coming to a stop for many after a ferry makes a hard landing in West Seattle. See what caused the hull of that boat to crumple and what crews are doing to get things back up and running again.
And some good news for Seahawks fans, with one of the Seattle biggest stars signing a new deal to stay in town. What that means is training camp rolls on this week. You're watching Fox 13 News at 5.
We've never really seen anything like it. A truck bursts into flames on I-5, bringing traffic to a standstill as explosions and fireballs pour off the flaming wreck. Officials say they don't know how long it'll take for the freeway to get cleared out, but we do know that the bulk of the fire has been knocked down.
We have team coverage of every angle of this developing situation for you. Alejandro Guzman standing by with the latest from authorities. First, let's go out to AJ Janavel with a look at the current situation. How do things look right now, AJ?
Okay, we want to show you some incredible weather video we got from a viewer. This is from Mike and Amy Ping on Lake Samish in Bellingham. Take a look.
Get away from the windows, guys.
Step back.
Just in case something flies into
Step
them.
back. Quinny, Eli, get back, bud. Oh my gosh, get back. Get back, get back. Get back, Elisha. Back farther.
So the National Weather Service confirms that is a water spout that hit their home around 7 o'clock last night. We had a chance to talk to the Pings today, and they showed us the damage it left behind.
That water spout came right over top of this beach, and it threw the sand up and threw it into the house. Took down quite a few fence boards. Ooh. And this is kind of the debris that got tossed around. Took that shed apart. But this section of the yard took the brunt of it.
The Pings tell us at one point the possible water spout lifted up their aluminum canoe, denting it. They say their boys were glued to the windows watching it happen. Luckily, no one was hurt. And Erin, as you just heard the mom, right there towards the end, you could hear how scared she was, and she was telling her kids to go back.
Yeah, at first when I saw that video, I thought maybe they were outside at first, but then when you kind of backed off and saw it, but that can be very dangerous.
Yeah.
A bicoastal tour is bringing the commander-in-chief to the Evergreen State. The presidential tour allowing Joe Biden to tout his administration's successes, like the $1 trillion infrastructure package signed into law.
We now rank number 13 in the quality of our infrastructure. China's ahead of us. So many other countries have moved. Folks, this matters.
But the top dog of the United States is in a difficult position. His approval rating is tanking as his administration is facing uphill battles. Inflation hitting a 40-year high, forcing Americans to pinch pennies.
One way to fight inflation is to drive down wages and make Americans poorer. I think I have a better idea to fight inflation. Lower your costs, not your wages.
But how long will Americans hold out in support of the president? Holes burning in their wallets becoming deeper as Eastern Europe sees war for the first time since World War II. The president bringing the iron hammer down on Russian President Vladimir Putin, placing sanction after sanction on the aggressor.
We're going to continue to stand with the brave and proud people of Ukraine. We will never fail in our determination to defend freedom and oppose tyranny.
Biden's tour is even more important as the 2022 midterms approach, with political experts saying Democrats face a red wave in the battle for majority in the Senate and the House.
And thank you for joining us for the news at 5. I'm Jamie Tompkins.
And I'm Hannah Kim. President Joe Biden is expected to land within the hour. He just left Portland a short time ago.
That's right. Tonight we have team coverage for you. The president's arrival will be felt throughout Seattle, with highways and roads expected to be closed as the motorcade travels around. We've got Aaron Mayovsky and AJ Janavell tracking those closures.
But first, we head to Fox 13's political reporter Matt Markovich, who is at SeaTac waiting for Air Force One. So, Matt, what is the president expected to talk about during his visit to Puget Sound?
We're going to send it back to you right now.
All right, AJ, thank you. We want to show you this live shot here. The commander-in-chief officially in the skies in Washington State. President Biden getting ready to touch down at SeaTac Airport after departing Portland and spending part of the day there. And he's going to continue his trip well into today and tomorrow here in the Seattle area.
Right. What's happening here in his visit, and there is the president walking off Air Force One here in SeaTac for a very short visit for Earth Day.
Well, fed up with shootings and crime, a Seattle staple says they're going to be closing their doors to one of their bakeries. On Sunday, Seattle police rushed to 3rd and Pine for a deadly shooting. A man was shot and killed around 12:30 in broad daylight. Now the owner of Pierogi says she's had enough. After multiple shootings and constant run-ins with locals, she says she's ready to move on.
My people have been spit at before, so employees definitely seen a lot of not good things happening here. We had a couple ODs deaths last week alone, and then shootings. We had about 3 shootings in last month, and 2 in last 3 days.
Yeah, Pierogi will keep their historic Pike Place Market storefront open, but as for the shooter, the police have not caught them yet. The police say a man was run over with a car on purpose more than once, and now they need your help to find that driver. It happened Saturday night at this Jack in the Box in Spanaway. The 68-year-old man, who was the victim here, had just gotten out of his car after his vehicle was hit in that drive-through. That's when he was run over, with his wife still in the car right ahead of him. The Pierce County detectives are asking for any help with the public that you can offer on this case. If you have any information, you can remain anonymous by calling Crime Stoppers. That number is 1-800-222-TIPS. A drive-by shooting suspect is on the run after shooting a woman in Lakewood. Troopers tell Fox 13 that Sunday night a woman was shot while driving on the southbound I-5 lanes near Bridgeport Way Southwest in Lakewood. She survived that shooting, but Washington State Patrol says they don't have much information about the suspect or the vehicle. If you were in that area and saw any aggressive drivers, they want to hear from you. Again, this happened around 5 o'clock on Sunday night, I-5 southbound lanes near Bridgeport Way Southwest in Lakewood. Today, a man accused in the shooting of another man in Pioneer Square pleaded not guilty. Dwayne Walker is charged with assault and unlawful possession of a firearm in the first degree. The shooting happened earlier this month on James Street. Police say the victim was a 21-year-old man, and prosecutors add that Walker, as well as his alleged getaway driver and the victim, were all illegally carrying handguns. All 3 of those people have been charged. Now, another man entered a plea of not guilty today. That's Joseph DePeco. He's charged with possession of stolen vehicle with the aggravating factor of rapid recidivism. He was arrested this month in West Seattle. Officers also found a rifle inside the vehicle. Police say it all had missing parts on it, but he looked like he may have been putting the gun back together. DePeco was prohibited, by the way, of possessing firearms.
With breaking news, the town of Lind, Washington has been evacuated due to a growing wildfire. Lind is a small town in Adams County. It has a population of nearly 600 people. The fire is around 2,000 acres and has already destroyed 6 homes. And there are 2 separate fires burning over there, one overtaking the town, the other closing westbound State Route 21. The state has mobilized resources for this fire.
And we are learning a firefighter in Lind was airlifted to Spokane. According to the Adams County Sheriff's Office, Eric Labes suffered smoke inhalation fighting those flames. That's just one of many fires burning right now across our state. One of the most active fires is the Cow Canyon southwest of Ellensburg. So thanks for joining us for your news at 6. I'm David Rose.
And I'm Hannah Kim. We have team coverage for you on these wildfires. Our weather team standing by with a look at fire conditions. Jennifer Dallin, who is near the Cow Canyon fire line. But first, we head to Washington Commissioner of Lands Hillary Franz, who's joining us to answer questions about this year's fire season.
Thank you so much for joining us. We had a very calm spring, but now things have really sparked. So let's talk about that fire in the town of Lind. Do you have any late updates that you're receiving? And how are the crews there and elsewhere in our state faring right now?
A dazzling display of the northern lights might be visible across the northern U.S. tonight, including for us here in the Seattle area. The northern lights are created by storms like no other here on Earth.
It's because the storm is actually in space. Right now joining us is Logan Johnson from the National Weather Service and National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. Logan, thanks for being here. Let's get right to the questions. Very simply, what causes the aurora?
Well, when we see the aurora, what's actually going on, as you mentioned, it's caused by the sun. The sun's ejecting a lot of what we call charged particles, and those are racing towards the Earth. And as they reach the Earth's atmosphere, they interact with gas in the Earth's atmosphere, and they produce the different colors that our eyes see as the aurora.
All right, Logan, it's Erin Mayofsky here in the Fox Weather team. Lisa and I are here, and we've been tracking it. We get so many viewer emails and comments like, how can we see it? When can we see it? We know we have to look up to the north. But talk about the spectrum of those colors and why it feels like we've been seeing it so much more often lately.
Sure. This has been a very active month for the sun. It was just about 8 or 9 days ago that we saw aurora in the region from another solar storm. So this storm is actually quite a bit stronger than that storm that we saw earlier this month. So we're going to have a better shot at seeing an aurora. The storm's going to kind of peak here this evening across our region, basically from about 9 p.m. through midnight. 2 things with that is there's still going to be a little bit of sun in the sky, which might interfere with it. So maybe closer to midnight might be a better time to see it. The other thing is we have some clouds moving up this way, so that might also get in the way. So those are 2 of the things that are kind of working against us to see the aurora, despite the strong storm that we have going on.
So, Logan, we were just saying that these storms are happening in space. So why do geomagnetic storms happen in the first place, and how are they categorized in strength?
Yeah, geomagnetic storms are kind of constantly occurring. There's a lot of chemical reactions going on the sun's surface, a lot of charged particles. Every once in a while something happens which is called a coronal mass ejection, which is kind of a big word to describe a very large amount of charged particles that leave the sun all at once. That just happened a couple of days ago. 2 of them actually did, and those 2 are sort of interacting and sending a lot more particles towards the Earth than we normally see. So those are kind of categorized levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The storm that we're seeing here is going to be what's called a level 3 storm, which is the strongest we've had since April of this year.
And Logan, you said the last time we saw the Aurora Borealis was about 8, 9 days ago. How does this night compare to that night? You said it's stronger. What does that mean?
So when it's stronger, that typically means that we're going to see the aurora farther south from the North Pole. So with a stronger storm, we have a much better chance of seeing the aurora simply because there's a lot more energy going into the atmosphere. So this is going to have a better chance at seeing the aurora. It just might be the weather conditions and maybe the time of day that kind of interfere with our seeing the aurora. However, if you go north of Seattle, you'll probably have a better chance as you get away from the city lights.
And curious over here, so do these geomagnetic storms impact anything other than creating those beautiful dancing lights that we're used to seeing?
Yeah, they definitely can. With a level 3 storm, you don't really see a lot of disruptions. However, if you got a level 4 or even a level 5 storm, you'd start to see things like GPS might not be working, that it would interfere with radio transmissions or other types of communications. So that could be pretty significant. So fortunately, we're not seeing anything that's quite to that level. But however, over various times in the past, we have seen storms that strong impacting the Earth.
Logan Johnson, thank you. This is fascinating. We appreciate it. And I really appreciate you talking to us and giving us some of the science behind this. And again, he said, just as you get closer to midnight tonight, and I think some of the people that take the best photographs probably do like the long exposures on their cameras, right, Lisa and Aaron?
Yeah, so that should be really cool to check out later on this evening, too.
This could be the deadliest hurricane in Florida's history. The numbers are still unclear, but we're hearing early reports of what may be substantial loss of life.
The destruction is widespread. Ian's landfall as a Category 4 hurricane has devastated Florida from the coast of Fort Myers to the central city of Gainesville.
This was such a major weather event that it's producing 500-year floods.
Homes are flooded, roads and bridges are washed out, and dozens of people are being rescued as people begin to return to their homes.
I'm getting important stuff, my paperwork, my husband's personal things. Because I lost him 2 months ago, and now I've lost my only home. So I'm packing it up.
Now, the storm sets its eye on new targets to the north.
We've got a lot to get to on this busy Thursday afternoon, so thank you for joining us for the news at 6. I'm Jamie Tompkins.
And I'm Hannah Kim. We have team coverage. The Fox 13 weather team is tracking the path of the storm. Caroline Elliott is near Jacksonville, where the storm is about to slam more communities.
But first, we head to Madeline Rivera in the most devastated area, Fort Myers. Madeline, what's the latest we know so far on this devastation?
Now on Fox 13, 50 years of federal abortion protection evaporates instantaneously.
What the Supreme Court just did was that they chose to endanger the lives of all women.
Overturning Roe versus Wade, the right to an abortion.
I feel like I'm actually having to mourn.
I think I'm just disappointed, honestly.
From the West Coast to the East Coast, Americans remain divided.
This is amazing. This is probably the best day of American history in my lifetime.
Bans poised in multiple states, triggered by today's ruling, and nearly half of states expected to limit abortion access.
Let me be very clear and unambiguous. The only way we can secure a woman's right to choose, the balance that existed, is for Congress to restore the protections of Roe v. Wade as federal law.
Emotions running high on both sides of the aisle for nearly 2 months following the leaked opinion overturning Roe v. Wade, leading to today's official announcement, an end to federal abortion protections. Thanks for joining us for the news at 6. I'm Jamie Tompkins.
And I'm Hannah Kim. The Supreme Court ruling will cause nearly half of the states to likely ban or limit access to abortion. But here in Washington, our law does not change, with the right to an abortion protected.
That's right. We have team coverage tonight tracking reaction from political officials as well as from the people it impacts the most, the residents of the United States and their medical providers.
But first, we head to Fox 13 political reporter Matt Markovich, who is breaking down the opinion for us. Matt.
And we're going to show you who made that decision. And here are the Supreme Court justices. The top 2 rows are the conservative panel of the justices, and all of them vote to overturn Roe v. Wade, except the Chief Justice Roberts, who's sometimes a swing vote. So that's what the vote was, 5-4. So what does this decision do? Well, the conservative majority of justices overruled Roe v. Wade, which essentially legalized abortions for 50 years. It ended federal constitutional protections for abortion and gave the states the power to regulate abortion. But looking beyond the decision, it laid the foundation for the court to rule on privacy rights, including same-sex marriages. Here's the 16 states that currently protect a woman's right to an abortion, and that includes Washington state. So what does it mean for the women here in our state? The ruling has no effect on Washington's law protecting abortions, which passed in 1970 before Roe v. Wade. And all women have the right to choose, and that includes women who come to the state to seek an abortion.
Washingtonians still have access to a safe and legal abortion based on Washington state law, and we'll do everything we can in our power to make sure that providers here and women who seek an abortion here are protected from any civil or criminal liability from another state.
The Attorney General has assembled a team of 20 people in his office to study legal options to protect women who cross state lines. For example, Idaho has what's known as a trigger law, which automatically bans abortions 30 days from any decision overturning Roe v. Wade, and that was today.
They don't have jurisdiction to criminalize someone or to penalize someone from a civil standpoint here in Washington state.
But politics is unavoidable in such a controversial debate.
So we now need to be committed to this fight to prevent the Republican Party from taking away in the state of Washington this right of choice.
Democratic Congresswoman Kim Schreier warns the state could lose its abortion protections.
And we have already heard from Mitch McConnell that potentially on the agenda, should Republicans take control of the House and the Senate, would be to impose a national ban, which would essentially do away with any protections we have in Washington state.
Look, I believe it does belong in the state.
In an interview done before the ruling, the prospective Republican candidate for senator, Tiffany Smiley, who is pro-life, said she'd advocate for women in her own way.
Especially as a woman, as a mom, I understand this, and I believe, women that have access to treatment, resources, care, anything they would need in that time of need will make the best decision.
Her opponent, incumbent Democrat Patty Murray, says the real fight is now on to prevent a federal ban from happening.
It is a very real possibility, and we have to make sure we are electing people who will enshrine Roe in law and not allow that to happen.
And coming up at the half hour, we'll have more about the tentacles that this ruling can have into the laws that protect your privacy, and the governors of Washington and Oregon and California and their plan to help women to seek abortions in their states. Back to you.
Well, some states are wasting no time taking action. In Missouri, the governor issued a proclamation just minutes after that Supreme Court ruling, banning all abortions except in cases of medical emergency. There are no exceptions in the cases of rape or incest.
Across the country, a lot of feelings and emotions about today's decision in D.C. Many here in our area are finding themselves on either side of this issue. Fox 13's Alejandra Guzman joins us live in downtown Seattle, where a demonstration, obviously behind you, is happening right now.
Alejandra, you spent the day talking with people who are pro-choice and pro-life. How are they responding to this decision tonight?
And I'm hearing the sounds of explosion right now.
Now on Fox 13, a full-scale Russian invasion underway in Ukraine. Over 100 reported missile strikes and parts of the country already sieged by the Kremlin. How a war half a world away from Seattle will impact all of us.
Plus, Washington state legislation in Olympia is making governors in other western states mad. How a gas tax here will impact residents of other states.
And a community in King County seeing a spike in homicides. Hear one family's plea to law enforcement to bring justice. Fox 13 News starts right now.
War in Europe, something the world has not seen in almost a century. Russian President Vladimir Putin launching a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, starting in the sky and now by foot. Thank you for joining us for the news at 5. I'm Hannah Kim.
And I'm David Rose. Within the last hour, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky ordering full military mobilization to counter the Russian invasion. The president also saying that 137 Ukrainian soldiers are dead so far.
And today, the U.S. and other NATO countries making financial moves against Russia.
President Joe Biden addressing the nation and the world today, adding more sanctions against Russia. Those sanctions are against Russian banks that hold about $1 trillion in assets. They cut off Russia's largest bank from America, meaning they cannot access their money stored in the U.S.
And the Russian elites also hit hard. President Biden wants them to feel the financial pain from war.
This is a premeditated attack. Vladimir Putin has been planning this for months, as we've been saying all along.
President Biden says the most powerful impacts of these moves will come over time, straining Russia of its finance and technology.
As the West reacts, bombs rain down on Ukrainian cities. A report of more than 100 missiles have hit cities across the entire country. Those missiles forcing residents to flee for safety. Residents of Kharkiv took shelter in the city's subway system. The footage showing the tunnel filling up with locals, including many children who plan to stay there overnight.
Russian troops moving from the air to the ground. An advisor to the Ukraine president says Russian troops have taken control of the Chernobyl nuclear site, which is the world's worst nuclear power plant accident. Russia's control of the facility is now raising concerns of an ecological disaster. The takeover is being called one of the most serious threats in Europe today.
We have local team coverage tonight. Right now, Alejandra Guzman is at the Seattle Center. Ukrainians are holding an anti-war rally.
But first, we head to Steve Kiggins, who spoke with Seattle Ukrainians, some who have family that are in the war-torn country right now. Steve, just pretty devastating.